Okay, I know it's been a minute. I said I was going to do this earlier, but here we are. Hope you guys enjoy. I'm going to be going over a couple of tips and tricks to help you guys win your ranked games, so stay tuned until the end. To start it off, I want to show you guys I'm a top 500 player. I'm not just putting that in the title of the video. Anyway, I got 6 different tips to help you guys, starting off with animation cancels. There are a variety of heroes that you can animation cancel with. Now, animation canceling is not crucial to your gameplay, but it definitely does maximize your damage output, and it might give you that little edge in that fight that you need to win it. So as you can see with Strange, once the reload gets to like about halfway, you can pull up your shield and it'll be already reloaded. You can just start shooting again and keep doing the same thing. So as you can see, Strange's animation cancel is pretty crazy. Moving on to another hero, this isn't really an animation cancel. It's like a technique you can do with Groot. If you're like close enough to the enemies, you can melee and you can use your normal attack. So as you can see in this example, I'm just shooting at a Groot normally, nothing special here, and I get 9.5 seconds. And then I do a little bit of tech. It's just melee and shooting and whatever. And then it gives me a little bit of a quicker TTK, but it's nothing too crazy. But you know, like I said, it's that little bit of extra damage that could give you the edge in the fight that leads to you guys winning it later on. So Punisher actually also has an animation cancel. As you can see here is about when the gun actually reloads and you could just melee to cancel it. It's not just Strange, Groot, and Punisher that you can do these things with. Magic as well. A lot of people know about this, but if you just use her normal swing all the time, it doesn't get as much damage done as if you do a sword and melee attack. As you can see here, you'll get a faster time if you do the sword melee instead of just sword. Well, hopefully you're getting my point here. There's a lot of different heroes that you can do a lot of different things with, like whether it's animation cancels or tiny techniques that will help you guys win fights. I won't be going over every single hero because it's going to make the video way too long. If you're wondering if your hero has animation cancels or techniques that you're not taking advantage over that can give you more DPS, then just go in the practice range and test it out. Moving on to number 2, mindset and mental. You may not think that mindset and mental have anything to do with this game, but it does. I know you've seen those videos on TikTok of the Spider-Man rage bait videos of Spider-Man just camping someone in spawn and then them just straight up leaving the game, leaving it to be a 5v6, and that's just an insta win. You also need to play with confidence. In this game, if you're not playing confidently, you're just not going to be doing what your team needs you to do. You have to always be playing the best that you can. And you being in a pissy mood or being angry is not going to help anyone win the game. In fact, you're probably going to just do more harm than anything for your team. If you had a bad game or you're angry with how you performed, just take a reset and then play a little later. You'll probably come back and be playing way better than you were before. This sort of brings me into my next point, which is don't be toxic. I know there might be that one Scarlet Witch going 1-7 on your team, but trust me, there's no point in yelling at them. The best thing that you can do in that scenario is just ask them to switch to a different role or even to another DPS that will bring more value to the team. But just yelling and straight up being toxic is not going to do anything except for bringing the team down, or maybe he'll even straight up start throwing. Who knows? There are some people like that. You yell at them, they'll start throwing. Alright, moving on to the next tip. This is a thing I see way too often happening in lower ranks. It's hard locking a character. You guys have to stop playing the same character when you're going 1-8. For example, what I mean by hard locking is if you have a Spider-Man on your team and they have a Neymar, and your Spider-Man's going 1-10, and their Neymar is absolutely popping off, maybe swap off Spider-Man and go someone that can counter Neymar. This is another reason why you guys have to stop being one-tricks. You need to learn other heroes. Just make sure you don't only know how to play one person from each role. Take a few people that you like playing and try to learn them just a little bit. So if your best hero gets shut down, then you can move on to the next, and if that doesn't work, the next, and then, so on and so forth. What you mainly want to be looking at is the enemy team's team comp. Look at their team comp and think, what can you play that can counter their heroes? This will give you such a big advantage. I hear almost nobody talking about this, and I never see it happening in lower ranks. So if you're in a lower rank, you will for sure climb out quickly if you just play the counters of the enemy team. Now, that doesn't mean to play heroes that you don't know how to play. Obviously, play the heroes that you're comfortable with. Now that brings me to my next tip, knowing your heroes and knowing your counters. Now I'll go over this one pretty quickly. There are certain settings for heroes like Loki that have double confirmation. If you go look in the settings, the double confirmation is for his ult, so you have to confirm that you want to copy that hero that you're hovering over. There's also settings for Star-Lord, Neymar, and Spider-Man. You can change it to hold with Star-Lord's like jet boosts or whatever, and you can change hold for Neymar's bubble, and then you can turn easy swing on and off for Spider-Man. I'm not sure what other heroes have this. I haven't really looked too deep into it, but I'm sure you can easily find it in the settings. And what I also mean by knowing your heroes is knowing like the text that I talked about earlier, like for example Groot, and also knowing animation cancels. Like I said, you can go in the practice range, test this out. There's probably also videos on how to do certain things. Like I know Spider-Man has a few animation cancels. I have no clue how to do them. You could definitely look those up though. Now moving on to knowing your counters. I'm sure everybody knows by now that Wolverine is one of the best tank shredders and a very hard counter to Groot. So let's just say you're playing Groot, the other team has a Wolverine on their team. You might not want to play Groot in that situation. There are countless other examples of this, like Neymar is a hard counter to Spider-Man. Now it's important to know your counters because then you'll know sooner that you should swap to a different hero that's easier to play against your counter. Or maybe you can even play a hero that counters their hero. Alright, so moving on to the final tip, it's stat farming. You'll typically see this a lot in DPS where they just constantly pump damage into the tanks and they just end up losing the game because they're not bringing enough value to the fight. But when they lose, their argument is, oh, I had this amount of damage, it couldn't have been my fault. As a DPS player, your job is not to constantly pump damage into people that are always getting pocket healed, for example, like the tank. As a DPS, you need to be taking off angles, trying to get picks on their healers or even their DPS to help you guys win that fight. I'm not saying that you should never be shooting at the tanks, but it's not the only thing that you should be shooting at. You should always be thinking ahead of how you're going to get your next kill. Most of the characters in this game have 250 to 275 HP, so it should not be taking you 1000 damage to get one kill. Try to figure out faster ways and more efficient ways that you can get kills. This doesn't just apply to DPS, it also applies to tanks and supports. As a tank, your main job is to create space. If you're not creating space for your DPS, they're not going to be able to get any kills. Now, the tanks can't create space if they're not getting heals. So the supports need to make sure that the positioning is right and that they're constantly healing. And that's it for today's video. I didn't want the video to be too long, so I didn't go into depth on a few things. If you guys want like a more in-depth video or you want a video completely on one thing, just comment down below, let me know. I'll make a video on that. There will be more in-depth videos that I'm going to be releasing later on. For example, I'm going to be VOD reviewing my top 500 gameplay, explaining to you why I position myself where I am and what you guys should implement into your gameplay and should not. Now, to be clear, that video that I'm talking about, it's going to be DPS. Let me know if you guys want a support or a tank video. I can post that as well. If this is the first video you're seeing of mine, I've posted a settings video. It is for console, so if you're PC, sorry about that. But if you stayed to the end, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And if you can, please drop a like. And if you want more videos like this, subscribe because I'm going to be posting a couple more. See you guys in the next video.